Welcome to the Fearless Females Voice podcast, where women's stories and experiences are shared in order to empower and inspire others. So I hosted a 3-day Fearless Challenge on the 18th, 19th and 20th of May. Now this challenge was all about making one change to overcome your fears. How it worked was we discussed everything fears related. So what they are, how they can help us, how we can use them to our advantage, and where they all came from. And then there were some exercises to complete to help you understand more about your own fears. So the 3 fears that we tackled were fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, and fear of failure. These 3 fears really resonate with me, and I have had many experiences trying to combat them. If you missed the challenge, then not to worry, because the recordings are in the Fearless Females Facebook group along with the summary workbook, which you can download, so be sure to check it out. On this podcast, I wanted to talk to you about the key takeaways from the 3 days, and then there'll be an audio recording of day 3 of the live challenge where we have a discussion about fear of failure. Day 3 was really powerful and there were many golden nuggets from there, so keep listening till the end to get the most from this podcast. Firstly, I was super nervous about doing this Fearless Challenge. I had never hosted something like this before, and I was over-preparing, and I made loads of notes to make sure that I had everything covered. But as soon as the session started, I eased straight into it. I hardly used my notes, and I just loved having meaningful conversations with the group of ladies who joined. It just flowed really well. Now, in this day and age, I feel that we are all living in some sort of fear. Fear of ourselves, fear of others, fear of opening up, fear of letting our opinions be heard, fear of even walking down the street. There are just so many things that have made us get to this fearful point, and it takes a lot of getting to know yourself and introspection to help overcome some of these fears. So on the first day, we understood more about fears. So what is fear? Fear is an emotional response which we give when we feel that we are in danger or that there is a threat to us. Fear is pretty much seen as a negative thing, but actually we discussed just how beneficial fear can be. Think back to a time when you were afraid. How did you feel? What did you do? So I was afraid to do this challenge, but I persisted and I broke through, and here I am having led a 3-day challenge. So let me start off with fear of the unknown. This is extremely common. We have a thing which we call the comfort zone. So the comfort zone is our happy place, but also our boundary. It's where we think we are safe, performing well, and happy. But this comfort zone can hold us back from our true potential. It prevents us from learning and growing because we are stuck in this zone. And when things get difficult or we are looking to make a change, fear kicks in, and we can either retreat from this boundary and head back into the comfort zone, or we can push through the uncomfort and insecurity and break through into a whole new space. Now, it takes a lot of courage to come out of your comfort zone and enter the unknown. Why? Because our brain is hardwired to prefer the negative consequences to uncertain outcomes. So what this really means is that we automatically think negative things will happen when we don't really know what to expect or what's to come. So where do all of these negative thoughts come from? Now, this is the interesting and also tricky part, because these thoughts come from within and are based on past experiences. So these past experiences trigger the fear of a negative outcome. So to conquer the fear of the unknown, we must be committed to making a change within ourselves. And there is a lot of work to be done here. So we now live in a world with constant change around us. Change can lead to ambiguity. People may not feel comfortable within that space. I know I've had many experiences where change has made me feel anxious, worried, and pretty much down. But the more we resist change, the more it will persist. Resilience is something that will need to be built here, and this is to help us manage change. So when you are in constant resistance, then you will feel uncomfortable, and that leads to anxiety and stress. So for me, I like to be mindful and practice this every morning before I start my day. So I wake up, I journal for 10 minutes or so, I'm pretty much just write down my inner feelings or what I'm thinking or something that may have triggered me to understand why. Then I go into reading for 1 hour, followed by a short walk. And then I make my cup of tea, which always makes me feel great. And this routine has worked wonders for me and stops my mind from going into overdrive. During this morning routine, I don't turn my phone on, as that can also trigger something and causes some form of kind of distraction. Right, so let's move into judgment. So what is judgment? It's about making decisions or coming to conclusions based on what you see. So we have all been impacted by judgment at some point in our lives. This is when someone has pretty much said something hurtful to you, or they're based on their perceptions, or has shaped your thinking about yourself. So when someone says something about you, you then think that way about yourself. And this has made people feel worthless, useless, or even powerless at times. Fear of judgment can impact our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves. So women have so many things that they don't discuss as they are too difficult to discuss, and they're taboo topics, and there's fear that others will judge them on this. So the kind of topics that we talked about in the challenge were divorce, mental health, sex, abortion, addictions, and the list pretty much goes on. We don't speak up enough about these things, and we keep them hidden deep within ourselves, and that can impact our mental health. Overthinking and holding everything in can really create burnout. So some things that can help with your thinking of being judged are, number one, it's good to know your own strengths and limitations. So if you know what you can bring to the table and where your boundaries are, then you'll feel more confident going into a scenario without being judged. I mean, at the end of the day, you know yourself best, so explore your strengths and really work to them. So I've got a classic example of this because I've been in this situation myself. So how many of you have sat in a meeting or a lecture or a forum where the speaker asks for the audience's opinion or to answer a question, but you don't speak up? Because I've been there in meetings where I am saying the answer in my head, but I'm too afraid to speak out in front of everybody else because what I say is my thought, is my opinion. And I'm afraid that others might judge it if it's incorrect or maybe something silly or not along the right kind of path of what the answer should be. So then I look around to see if anyone else is also willing to answer. And I find that a lot of women are the ones who actually hold back in these scenarios. So what I found is everyone will judge. There's not one person that will not judge. So the second thing you can do is to distance or mute yourself from negative energy or people. So you need to protect your energy and time and control what you are exposed to. Now, if someone is judging you and you aren't able to distance yourself, then have a conversation with them and understand why they're being triggered or why they don't like what you're saying or doing. Because we need to have inner confidence to dismiss what others are saying when they're talking negatively about you or judging you. And you need to trust in your own abilities. Now, the third thing is self-sabotage. We are all our own worst critiques. So I recently did a podcast with my fiance, and we tend to keep our relationship private, so we don't share much on social media. Now, this podcast was recorded and I went into overdrive after it was completed. I was pretty much thinking the worst about what people would say, how I came across, what they would think, if I was a strange person, if I was a weirdo. I had all these concerns about what others would say. And then I just stopped and I thought, who actually cares? Like, why am I so worried about all of these things? Like, it's a podcast. I'm not a podcast pro who's been on hundreds of podcasts. Like, this is new for me and it's a learning experience. And I'm hoping that people are open-minded enough to know that. So I opened up, did the best I could, and I'm still learning. I'm still growing. And if others judge me, then that's on them. And then we have investing in yourself. So this could be in the form of training, coaching, getting support, doing courses, whatever works for you. Because if you invest in yourself, then you'll be building your inner confidence and you'll be increasing your abilities to do something. At the end of the day, believe in yourself, build your confidence slowly. It does take time. So day 3 of the challenge was all about fear of failure. This is something I am so passionate about as it has held me back a lot. So instead of talking about it here, I'm going to put the recording from the Fearless Challenge directly in now so you can listen to the discussion that we had on it and how it impacts us and how we define success. Hope you enjoy. Streaming on the Facebook group.
Yes.
Okay, let's do
And
it.
we are on day 3 of the Fearless Challenge. And there's been a few people who weren't able to join today at this specific time, but they will be watching the recording and catching up. So I will be chasing up with them just to make sure that they've completed the challenge. So for today, we're going to be talking about fear of failure. So as for the first 2 sessions, this will last roughly between 30 and 60 minutes. And we'll just have a conversation around fear of failure. I am finally joined by Nora Brown, who is an amazing woman, a coach, over 10 years experience, expert in this area. So welcome, Nora. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Well, here I am, right? So I'm Nora, 37 as of yesterday. I saw so yeah, I don't even know where the first 36 have been going, but well, here I am making my way to the 40. Mom, wife, besides my business side, like I'm just like, I love life. I'm in love with life, and it hasn't always been like that, far from. But I would say like the last 7-8ish years, like I'm just embracing life. There's so much beauty, and like everything is beautiful if you want to see the beautiful, right? Like everything is ugly if you want to see the ugly. So I really consciously made the decision to just refocus how I was seeing everything. And that makes all the difference. I'm so happy. Like that is it. I love animals. I'm always trying to like improve their quality of life. Like I support a lot of shelters, especially in the neighborhood. That's my absolute passion, besides my baby, obviously. She's my number one. So the business side, I've been working as a mindset coach. Started off as an international tax lawyer, did the whole Shazam, PhD and all, but the life wasn't for me. I still love the topic. It's just that the entire work environment drained me. I'm the biggest introvert in the world. So actually, like people drain my energy. Like every outside experiences drain my energy. And so that is not really handy if you're constantly in contact with other people and you are forced to network, right? Like actively network. So that it wasn't for me. Stopped, switched to mindset. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly. So I went back to school. I did my studies. I didn't do a PhD. I did 2 masters in psychology, well, bachelor masters in psychology. Got certified as a coach. And here I am today. So I've been focusing on mindset mainly with a strong focus on imposter syndrome. But with imposter syndrome comes a lot of different other elements, right? Like the 3 that we are discussing over the last 3 days, like the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Those are just 3 of the entire range that you could mention. And I actually love, well, I'm sorry I couldn't be here on the first day, but I actually love this day because it's all connected. Like the fear of failure has a really strong attachment to the fear of the unknown and also to the fear of judgment. So I'm actually really excited that I'm actually here on this one. And this morning I was like, no, I'm not going to skip it. It's going to be
What a great introduction. Thank you so much, Nora. Full of energy, which is lovely to see always. And also Nora has been on my podcast and she shares her amazing story on that. So give that a listen. I think it was 26 or 27. Yeah, I'll have to double check, but her name and her image is in the graphic as well, so you'll be able to spot it. I'll
listen to it.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very good podcast. So as we've briefly touched on, we are talking all about fear of failure today. And the goal from today is to change our mindset from failure to success. So firstly, I'd like to talk a bit more about failure. So what is failure? We use this word, but what actually is failure?
It's a question for me. I'm so sorry.
Everyone. Yeah, no, it's a question for anyone. I have my own, and so I actually Googled it just to see what the exact definition was, because I did a little brainstorm of myself to say, right, what is failure? And when I Googled it for the definition, it said lack of success.
Yes. It
Right?
doesn't
Lack
bring
of
you
success.
anywhere, right? It's like with a lot of words in the dictionary, like it's like happiness, the state of being happy. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't say here.
And then I thought, okay, well, what is success? You know, who defines success? What is success? So it's almost like I just kind of went around to be like, right, what actually is failure?
It's like, to me, because like this, failure, like the definition of failure, I'm just going to keep this very, very quickly because I could talk for hours about this. So I'm going to keep it in 2 minutes. And if not, just cut me off. So like it's linked to the definition of fear, right? Because we give fear a really bad tone, and it shouldn't have, because basically fear is nothing more, nothing less than an area in your mind that it hasn't mapped out yet. So we have three brains. Well, we have more brains, but the three most important brains are like in the back, the reptilian brain, hindbrain. Then we have our limbic system, and then we have like the neocortex, the newest part of our brain. So what it does, the very oldest part is wired for survival, only that, and it drives everything else in our brain. So it's really, that is why I quickly address it, because it's so important to, if you understand what is going on, then you will notice like fear, like it's silly. It is silly actually. So what it does, like, and it's good that we have the survival brain, right? That is programmed. So it does a lot of things in our body automatically, like breathing, our heartbeat, right? So these are things that we don't have to think about, thank God, because I lose my keys everywhere. So I can only imagine how many times I would forget to actually breathe or like make my heart beat. So it's good that is automatic. But what it does, like, and that is connected to your, to the limbic brains. That is the part of the brain that your emotions are stored and where memories are created. So if you have, so for the survival, every single thing in your life, so take me 37 years young.
Of course.
So every single thing that I have seen, have read, have experienced, like all those things, whether they are true or not, but those things are already stored in my brain. And because it already knows it classified it as safe, because, well, still here, right? I'm still breathing, so it is working. But all the things that we have not experienced yet, so the unknown of yesterday, I think it was, right?
The fear of the unknown. First day. The first
day.
Oh,
the first day, like the fear of the unknown. It's simple, an area that hasn't been mapped out by your brain yet. So that makes it uncomfortable, because the oldest part of our brain is saying, don't go. Like, you don't know if it's safe there, right? Like,
no experience.
You don't know if you are going to survive. So don't step in there. And that is why it's so important we need to explore, because it's the same with the Google Maps cars, right? That are driving through the streets. Like, you need to map everything out. And it's the same for your brain, because once you have mapped it out, like your uncomfortable zone all of a sudden becomes comfortable because it's classified as safe again. So like, and that is it. Like, the fear of failure is that it comes from that part of the brain, because we want to step out, right? Like, we want to explore, we want it really badly because we want to improve the quality of our life, whatever definition you give to that, right? Whether that is more freedom, like a promotion, like a study, more money, like can be anything, right? Like, define how it looks like for you. But we are afraid to actually do that because, well, what if it doesn't work out, right? What if we stop reading and
what if we fail? What if we're not successful? This is it, right? Because when I think back to my experiences I was thinking about times where I was afraid of failure. And I always think to myself, whenever I'm afraid, I don't want fear to stop me from doing something. And I always say to myself, okay, I'm scared, but I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to wait a year to do something. And one of the examples that I've used in the past 2 days is fearless females. I was so scared to start this because I had firstly no idea what I was doing. So there was a lot of unknown, but also the case of actually failing. If anybody was actually going to listen, if anybody was going to turn up to anything, I was really, really afraid of that. I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I started my first ever podcast with somebody who I knew. And at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I mapped everything out. I did, you know, I just learned a few things. And now I feel so confident. And that's grown over time. Exactly. And, you know, there's that whole element of someone starts anything, could be a new business, let's say. But how many businesses actually are still alive after 6 months or 1 year or even 3 years? And it's a very limited amount because people then kind of change their tactics or dive into something else, or there's that element of failure. So for me, I was like, I want to keep this consistent. I said I will put a podcast out every week and I want to do one every single week. And I told myself this, no matter how scared. And the weeks that I didn't have a guest, I remember my fiance saying to me, okay, you don't have a guest, do a solo podcast. And I was like, no. I was so scared. I was thinking, no one's going to listen to just me. I have nothing to talk about. I don't even know what to talk about. And he was like, are you crazy? Talk about your story. Talk about what you believe in. Talk about your travels. Talk about, there's so much that you can say. And he pushed me. And I was retreating. I was thinking, I'm scared that this is just not going to be a success. And eventually I was like, right, you know what? This fear is creeping in. So I'm just going to do it. And I remember doing it. I think it was about 10, 15 minutes. And then I did another one, then another one, and now they're getting longer and longer in my solo podcast, and I feel far more confident about doing it. So it's almost that fear of failure. And then
sorry, my mother-in-law is talking to me.
Oh, but yes, so there's that fear of failure. So I've had many experiences, like even in the workplace. So I wanted to, go for it.
No, I was thinking, that I believe in this one. Where there is a will, there is a way.
Yes.
Even if you want to do something, you are afraid, you are scared, but if you have a strong will to do it, you do it, and I'm sure you succeed. That's what I've been doing all the time.
Yes.
I know you're very fearless. I tell you, your life that you've led and how you've got to where you are now. So I can imagine, but yeah.
No, I was saying the biggest fear I had in my life was when I left. I come from Tanzania. And then I came to Sweden and London and so on. And to find and establish yourself, because I was a teacher, and to find that position in another country was not easy, That's what it was. But things have solved, and it has gone all right.
Yeah, but you worked on that, isn't it? That's
you have to work on it. Nothing is given, you see. Nothing is given on the ready-made plate. You have to work for it.
Yeah, and that's the
magic
thing,
does not fall out of the skies.
Yeah, but I think it's an ongoing journey. So for me, there's always new things that come my way, which I am afraid of. And then I need to think back and be like, right, I need to work on this and get through. Because, today the Fearless Challenge was something that was kind of like, oh, I want to host this. And, next week it might be a face-to-face thing or, whatever, but I've never done that. So there's always new things that creep in. And it's just remembering that mindset and saying, you know what, I can do this. And what is failure? I was thinking to myself, even on this challenge, I was like, okay, well, no one turns up. It's fine. I'll just host it myself and people can watch it later. It's fine. There's no such thing as failure for me. I was like, let me just keep going. Someone will watch it. And people have watched the recordings and got back to me as well, which is really nice. It's nice to see.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That is also another part, right? Because you say, what is failing? Like, if you want to know, like, what is failure? Like, you need to know what is success. Right? Yeah. I mean, one doesn't go without the other. So, but if you want to know what is success, because success is not a one size fits all, like what success is for me doesn't have to be for you or anyone else, right? And for that, you really need to know yourself, which is a really tricky thing to do because there's always 4 personalities hiding in you. It's like how other people see you, how other people want you to be, who you are, and who you want to be. Like, and those 4 people are always, like, we have all 4 of those personalities. And the stronger you are becoming the person that you want to be, like, the stronger your definition of success is. And only then you know what failure is. And because that is also linked to yesterday, right? Like the fear of judgment, because we are so driven by what other people think of us and how they want us to be and how they want us to act, because and it's always selfish. If we want to see certain behavior from someone else is always because of selfish motives. Because and that is why it's so hard to step outside of it, right? Because we don't want to disappoint. It's in our nature. We don't want to disappoint because we want to belong to a tribe. It's part of the survival. So like, it's really hard. So the fear of failure can also be that all those little people are telling you like, you're never going to make it, right? Like, this was my case, like, because when I started my mindset coach journey, like, everyone around me said like, I'm not going to curse, you're crazy. Like, how can you give up a career as international tax lawyer? And I was successful, like I was climbing the ladder, but it wasn't my success, right? Because it was never intended to be for me.
Yes.
And they were like, why are you doing that? And you're going to fail, and you don't know how to run a business. You don't know anything about mind or mindset, etc. Like, and they smacked me back to the shadows. And like, and at one moment, and I'm still struggling with this, honestly, like every time I try to do something new, it's like this little voice is like, you're gonna fail. Because everyone is telling you that. And my fear of failure is not because I'm afraid to fail, it's afraid that they are right. So
I read from that there's basically psychologists have said that with the fear of failure, it's basically not the fear of the outcome, but it's the fear of embarrassment or feeling ashamed. Because that's that's an interesting concept. So you're not afraid that you're not gonna do well at this business, but it's just what others are probably, or how you feel or are perceived to others. Yeah. And you talked about this the concept of being judged by others and what success is. For me, I was just thinking around the whole comparison syndrome as well. So for example, everyone's successes are different. You think your success, what I want from what I'm doing is different to somebody else, whatever that is. But then there's that whole element of, what is that person doing? And why am I not there? Am I failing because that person has got this, whereas I've only got this? And I've seen that so much where women do that. They're just comparing against other people. And I say women, but people in general, it's just something that's so common. And I've learned to be like, you know what, I'm going to define my own success. I'm going to define what makes me happy. It's not about what somebody thinks I should be doing. Yes, like it's not about that. It's about me being happy, me being free, me thinking for my own self and feeling good.
There's no other way. There's really no other way, because if you do things to make other people happy, it's not success. Because even if you reach that goal, you will feel so drained and unfulfilled because it's not you, right? Yeah. You need to own your identity. And you know what? This is the most difficult part of the entire journey. Like, because who are you? Right? That is such a difficult question to answer, because honestly, like, even to this day, and I grow a lot over the years, obviously, but like, there's still like everything that I do, like I consciously ask myself, like, am I doing this because it makes me happy, fulfilled, etc., or because someone else is expecting me this to do? And it's a compromise, right? You cannot shut the entire world out. Like, there's always a give and take. You can never be 100% you, because like, we are tribe animals. Like, we live with other people, you with your fiance, me with my husband, etc. So I cannot just do what I want. Like, like, there's a middle way, right? But that also means you should not lose your identity over it. Like, you can give in a bit, but it's both ways.
Yeah.
And it should not shake your core, because that is just like your foundation.
Absolutely. And when we talk about failure, when people talk about failure, I always see it as or I hear it as a negative. People are saying, failure, it's a negative, they're failing. So I guess I want to talk about how we can use failure as a positive. And can we use failure as a positive? What are your thoughts?
What did you say? Can you say about
using failure as a positive? So can we use it in a positive way? Like, what can we gain from failure that we define as lack of success?
I don't know, but just thinking of, I think I can see that both of you, you are a strong personality and you know what you want and so on. Chandni has been traveling alone and so on. But there are certain people who come from a very different background. They've been pushed in their childhood or whatever it is. And basically their they are not stable in their mind, you see. There is more
Yes.
worrying about getting failed, So it is often, it's there where the people want to learn, you have to forget all the past things and build up your confidence. There's more thing to build up your confidence to come up, But many people don't have it because it is the environment they're living into, that one. It's the society, it's the culture, the traditions and so on, which stops them. That's what I think.
It is. And you actually, because you mentioned a super important word, and that is confidence, because everything stands with confidence. Because if you know who you are, and if you stand in your right, and you're like charging your worth, right, as a person, not even talking about in school or in your business or at work, but as a person, if you claim and own your worth, like, your confidence grows, and that gives you so much strength and energy to basically tackle any fear or like anything that comes in your way. Because if you truly believe in your capabilities and in your own power, it's easier to actually step over that. And with that being said, to come back to your question, like the failure as a positive, you cannot have success if you have never failed. It's not possible, right? It's not possible. You need to have two ends of the equation. Like, there is no good without the bad. Like, we don't have life if there would be no death, right? There needs to be some kind, like, you need two opposites, like, because life would be pointless if it would be for eternity, because we won't do anything, because we have all the time, right? You always need like a source element in every equation, and you need to fail. Like, and people always think I'm crazy, but what I like, when my kid is old enough to actually take advice from me, I'm going to support her to fail and make mistakes, like, badly, like, because it's the only way, because it doesn't only prepare you for the good and actually appreciate the good, but what it also does, it shows you exactly, because failure is nothing more that something that you don't perceive as success. It's nothing more, nothing less. So if you classify something as a failure, it simply means it's not for you. And knowing what you don't want is so powerful. So please, like, I advise everyone to fail miserably, like, over and over and over again. You need that in your life.
This is the fear that we have, though, isn't it, of failing? And I found that I've had so many learnings from my failures, whatever the failure is. And I almost feel like now I go into things being like, oh, well, if that happens, that's fine, because I'll learn something, I'll make a note, and I'll change. I'll make a change to make it something different, or there may be new opportunities that present themselves. So, for example, I went for a job like 5-6 years ago, or my first ever job, actually, coming out of university, and I didn't get my first interview. And I genuinely at the time thought, I failed. I was like, oh my God, I've got this degree, I've got my master's in engineering, and I didn't get the job that, I thought I was supposed to do. And actually, I took all the learnings from that and went for an interview with another place and another place and another place. And I had 3 more offers from that one failure. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm not a failure. It's okay. It can happen. And that's just the mindset that I had then. And I took those learnings. So it's a very kind of simple example, but the concepts are there around the learnings that you have from your failures.
It's all the same. Doesn't matter if it's a big failure or a big mistake, or I don't like the word mistake. But failure, yes, but that is it. Like, it's the same with all of it. Like, we give it a bad tone. Like, in our mind, it's the same with fear. We give it a bad definition, like a negative vibe. It's not. Like, it's the same with failure. It's not a negative vibe. It's a positive thing. Because you tried.
No, you have it. We should be positive all the time. Even if you have a failure, you look at the positive side of it. Anything.
Right. It's like, it just means that it's not the success, like, it's not what you want. Like, if it's a failure, it's not a success, right? So it just simply, and even like, if you like take it back, for example, let's say I was talking to someone last week, actually, a guy from India, and he lives now in Dublin in Ireland, and he was like he feels like he failed because he's not getting, like when he was in school, not getting straight A's. And I was like, are you serious? Like, that is not failing. Like, and that is the entire thing, right? Because we also put excessively high goals, like goals we can never reach and will make us feel bad in the end. It's not realistic. Like, if you take, for example, school, university, anything, there is a reason why they let you pass above 60-70%. You don't need 100%, right? There's an entire ideology behind that. It's impossible, right? So, like, not getting straight A's is not failing. Like, and sometimes you need that high score, right, to be like accepted into like another maybe university or whatever. But like, people put so much pressure on themselves.
They do. And it all comes again from society, as we were talking about, from people, from judgments. It's all that whole idea of success, idea of what we should be, when actually we need to understand what we want to be. Look inside and say, what do I want? What do I want to be? What do I want to achieve?
Right. And this is the same as deciding what you want to have for dinner tonight. Because a lot of times we know what we don't want, but we don't know what we do want. So if you already rule out all the don't wants, it makes your space for what you actually want smaller to define. So you need to fail. Please, people, fall. Allow yourself to discover.
We talked about the company example. Me and my partner were talking about this, and me and my fiance were talking about this earlier today around, you know, when people see these big brands, these big companies, Nike specifically, because I've just read Shoe Dog, and we see this brand, we see the shoe, the trainer, everything that it embodies, encompasses the brand,
right?
And it's huge, it's massive. And then reading his book, he's literally spent 10 years trying to build it, 10 years of not making any money. 10 years of hard grafting in order to even get somewhere. But I think in this day and age, it's almost like we want things so instantly and forget to think that actually there's a process. It takes time. And we look at the end goal. Like, I can give you an example. I've said this one before on a podcast that I did. So when I was first doing a podcast, I was looking at, oh my God, what guest do I want? And I was like, okay, so I want Michelle Obama because I just read Becoming. I want Beyonce because I love Beyonce.
Yes.
And I was speaking to my partner and he was like, okay, so that's the end goal, but you know, you're not going to get them because you've not even done a podcast. And I was like, okay, I get that. But then it was almost like I had to forget that. And that was the end goal, but how do I get there? Yes. So I could have easily been like, right, I'm not going to start a podcast because I'm not going to get these kind of guests and it's too far-fetched or out of reach. But then I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to start off with my cousin, my friend, people that I know, and then work my way up to people I don't know. So I didn't, Nora, me and you, like when we did our podcast, we hadn't really spoken before. So starting to get different guests on and gaining confidence. And I'm like, who knows, in 5 to 10 years, I might have Michelle or Beyonce. Who knows?
Why not? Right? If other people can interview them, like that is it, right? Like, there's no difference between them.
And this is it. So it's almost like thinking and mapping out, because from day one, and for those watching, there was a whole element of micro goals and mapping out your step process to get your goal. And this is why I talked about that, because you have to take one step at a time. Imagine you do one little thing every single day, and imagine how far you would get in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years. Imagine that. It's crazy. Insane. Like, I think to myself, if I did do a podcast one a week in 1 year, I'd have 52 podcasts. Like, that for me is like, whoa, that's loads. And I want to keep that up because I know that I can do it, keep it consistent, get it in my routine, and that will help me. So
you have to make it a little wider too, Chandni, that maybe you have to go to the local radios or BBC radio or something, and then talk something.
It will come.
It will, with the time, you know.
It will come.
And,
you know, still early days.
I love the comparison that you just mentioned, the comparison factor, right? And that we shouldn't want to be like someone else's chapter 137 because there's an entire process in between. And like, the one advice that I can give anyone, especially this time of age, is don't be fooled by all those Facebook and Instagram ads. You will not reach 6 figures in 30 days. You will not gain 1 million followers in 2 weeks. And that is it. Because people think oh, but they are selling it, so there must be some truth in it. And then they don't reach it and they think they're a failure. Because like, what is wrong with me that I cannot do that? There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's that people are selling hope. Like, they're not ethical. Like, they're selling, that is it. It's the most toxic and evil of all, is selling hope, because you take away something from people way more important than money. Money is one thing, and these are the money chasers, right? That sell hope are the money chasers. And that is, I'm sorry, like, they're selling like 6-7 figures, name your price, right, in 30, 60, 90 days. And these people are struggling themselves. They cannot pay the bills. Like, that is how it works, right? But people don't see that. Because if even one gets convinced and actually buying that, like, they're good. Like, they're like, okay, that's bread for another month, and the next month I will hustle again, right? That is how their mind works. But that is it. Don't compare yourself to those ads. Or like,
create your own success, create your own definition of success. Don't compare yourself to anyone. I think that's the message from this. So I did have some exercises, and I guess the people who are watching this can do this in their own time, but I will just run through them, and then you can kind of pause and do the exercises as we go down. So we've given a bit of insight into fear of failure, some of the reasons why, the mindset behind it, how we should be thinking, and that it's not easy to think like this, right? So don't worry, it's not going to be like you're going to watch this and tomorrow you're going to be like, right, I'm going to overcome this fear. I think it's a process, it's a journey. So just be patient with it. Even I, as I said, still experience this. Everybody does. I just approach it in a different way. Exactly. It's just the way you approach it. So so we'll go on to the exercises. So the first one, I guess we've all given a little glimpse in this, but why are you afraid to fail? So something that Nora mentioned is it coming from within, from past experiences. This is where fear comes from. So it's kind of linked into the first day as well, as to why are you afraid to fail? Where is it actually coming from? So this could be from a previous life experience. It could be, as I said, for example, I didn't get my first ever job that I wanted, but then actually I got something else instead, and I still built the career as I would have built it. So, and all happy days. So where is that coming from? So that's the first thing. And then list 3 good things that could come from failing. So we've already talked about how failing can be used as a positive way. So if you list down 3 things that could come from failing. Are you doing the exercises as I'm talking? Ramamasi? Yeah.
I'm writing the.
Oh, sorry. I'll put this in the Facebook group as well. And then we talked. I'll put it in the Facebook group. I'll put the exercise in the Facebook. You can write if you want. Sorry, it's just the. And then we talked about mindset and a bit about language as well, because we said that failure, when we think of failure, when people speak about failure, it's used in a negative way. So it's all about stop using that negative language. And if you're already thinking of negative outcomes of failure, then you're never going to actually be able to start something. If you're thinking, if I thought, no one's ever going to listen to my podcast, what's the point? I'm never going to achieve what I want. I'm not going to achieve 20 podcasts. Then I wouldn't have started it. That kind of behavior and negative thinking and mindset would have made me feel like, what's the point? So that's what we want to avoid. So we want to use positive language and actually see the end goal, whatever that is. And let's use our micro steps to actually get there, the micro goals. And then think about what is the best thing that could happen. So for me, in my podcast example, I get a bit of Beyonce on and happy days, invite her over, have a nice podcast. And that's for me, the best thing that could happen. She's my dream guest. I'd love to have her on. And can it happen? Like, yeah, it can. Of course. Anything's possible, right? Yeah, like one day, however long it takes, it could happen. And
it can happen very fast too.
Yeah, like you just don't know what's going to happen, right? Like I didn't think I'd be here doing a fearless challenge, connecting with Nora, who I'd never met before. Like it just all happened, right? Just kind of the path created itself. It just showed itself.
If you allow it to show.
Yes, that's very true. But what I find is this goes back to fear of the unknown, but when I am afraid of something, I just take the first step, just a little step to see what happens. And that was a part of the challenge, to make one change, so just a tiny step. And then the rest of the path just kind of unfolds itself.
Right?
It's crazy how I've experienced that so much over the last probably 3 months whilst doing Fearless Females. And I just find, connecting with you, Nora, for example, and then this is now happening. And then next thing you know, we're doing something else, and the path just unfolds. And it's all about creativity, bringing new ideas to the table, networking, speaking to new people, and I love it. So it's really nice that I'm able to experience that, so I can say it does work. Like, I'm such a firm believer of this. It works, and we just need to work on it. And the key thing is taking that first step, because that's the hardest part, right?
Yes.
That's the hardest part. And that's what we're talking about, the fear of the unknown on day one, that change. And I caught up with some of the ladies yesterday who actually made that first step, and they feel great about it.
Of course.
And that will hopefully unravel now more and more great things for them. It was just so nice to hear that they actually implemented it and they had great results from it as well. So yeah.
You need to keep moving, right? Like, no matter how small, standing still is like stopping your workout routine. Once you stand still, damn, it's hard to get off that sofa. Like, you need to keep moving. Like, the second you stop. It's because the longer you wait, the harder it actually is to get back in the game.
But if you want to stop, then that's fine as well. So it's almost like, what do you want? Imagine if someone actually just
it needs to be a conscious decision.
Exactly.
Like, I need now time to rest and recharge. Like, and that is also a micro step in achieving your goal, because you need to fuel yourself. Like, you're not a robot, right? Like, you need energy.
Agree.
But it needs to be a conscious decision.
Completely agree.
With a deadline.
It's all about goal setting, people.
Yes.
So then the challenge from today's session is share your one win of the week in the Facebook group.
Yes.
Or social media. So what I'm going to do in the Facebook group today is put the question out there. And it's for all those who have seen this challenge, or any other women in the group, to just share your win. And I want us all to support each other. So it'll be really nice just to see what kind of wins people have got from the week, from this challenge. It could be anything, home, personal, work-wise, anything. Something that they've just felt good about.
No matter how small, every win is a win.
I agree. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's just, even if you drank your 1 liter of water that you wanted to drink because you wanted to drink that, that's great. That's a win. Yeah.
Yes. I'm actually excited to see what they will put there.
Yeah, same. So I haven't put it out yet, but I will be putting that in the Facebook group, and feel free to share your wins with others as well. So that's this is also, tell your friends, tell your family, tell us. I love hearing about everyone's wins. I love when women are telling me they're doing great things or that they've made a positive change. It makes me feel good. So yeah. And that is pretty much the end of the challenge, actually. It's the end of the 3-day challenge, end of today as well. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Nora.
Oh, no, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was so good. Thank you for your input and everything. So yeah, it was really
nice seeing you too. I'll listen to okay?
Yeah, I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females Voice podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group called Fearless Females and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye for now.